In the intricate world of Korean affairs, tailored intelligence makes all the difference. Korea Risk Group's consulting services offer specialized, actionable intelligence designed to guide your Korea-related decisions. We provide bespoke consulting services that cater to your unique challenges and goals. From policy analysis to market entry strategies, we bring clarity to complexity. Transform uncertainty into opportunity and visit koreapro.com solutions today. Hello listeners and welcome to the NK News Podcast. I'm your host, Jacco Zwetsloot, and this episode is recorded on Tuesday, the 22nd of July, 2025. I'm joined here in the studio by Joon Ha Park. Joon Ha, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
We've had a busy week, lots of confirmation hearings here in South Korea to choose new ministers. We're going to talk about at least two of them. There may be three. I may have forgotten one. Let's start with the unification minister.
Sure. So the unification...
Who's back again in his old job from 20 years ago.
That's true, yeah. So he was the unification minister under Roh Moo-hyun, and he was the first of the lot in quite a flurry of confirmation hearings just last week. And Chung Dong-young, the former unification minister, as I mentioned, under Roh Moo-hyun, he actually mentioned quite a number of things, including calling to rename the unification ministry under a set of names, but of course called for, again, a bipartisan debate on what the ministry should be called, or whether or not it actually should be renamed. And he referred to the example of West Germany under Chancellor Willy Brandt, who changed the name of the Federal Ministry for All German Affairs to the Ministry of Intra-German Relations. And he was saying that that's sort of a shift reflected this sort of pragmatic acknowledgement of East Germany's existence along with West Germany, and helped lay the foundation for improving relations through exchange and cooperation and eventual fall of the Berlin Wall.
This may be one of the ideas that Chung Dong-young picked up when he went over to Germany after he lost the 2007 election against Kim Jong Il.
Indeed, yeah. That was quite a landslide loss for...
It was a landslide loss, and he went off-grid for a while, did a bit of an exile in Germany. A lot of Korean politicians for their exile go to America, but he went to Germany, I guess, for this reason, maybe to come back with some ideas about how to handle inter-Korean affairs.
For sure,
He's having a second crack at the job of unification minister. How did the hearing go?
Yeah, so the hearing was quite, Chung Dong-young was as normal. He's a veteran politician, and he's been quite a veteran journalist as well. So he was very well spoken on his part. Whether the opposition party took it in such a good way remains to be seen, but the sort of concept that sort of overrode the entire confirmation hearing process for each of the cabinet ministers related to national security was designating North Korea as the main enemy of South Korea. So the Chujok.
The Chujok, the main enemy. Okay. This is a term that's been in fashion since 95.
Yeah, 1995. So it was coined under the Kim Jong-il administration just after, or a couple months after the North Korean delegation came to inter-Korean talks and threatened to turn Seoul into a ball of fire.
Or a lake of fire, or a sea of fire.
Yeah.
Any of those.
When you see that coming into play, Chujok is not actually a new term. It's only been around for the past 30 or so years. And then when you see that coming up in the political rhetoric of the day, it is a politically charged question. We've seen the term Chujok being dropped and reinstated multiple times by different conservative and arguably progressive governments. So when you see that coming into play, especially under the new Lee Jae-myung administration, where the cabinet ministers are not really giving a solidified answer on who the main enemy of ROK is, or whether ROK can define North Korea as an enemy, or is it a dual-track approach where they're a partner of conversation and also an enemy if they give any military threats.
Right.
So that's what Chung Dong-young was going for. So he rejected the idea of a main enemy and designated North Korea as the Chujok. And he instead went for the idea that it was a existential threat to the Republic of Korea. And that kind of went on with the defense minister as well, the first civilian defense minister to serve in office, or if confirmed, he will serve in office for the first time in 64 years. And what he was saying was that he kind of backtracked on Jang Dong-young, and what he said was that North Korea is indeed the main enemy, which sort of contradicted to Jang's main point. And you saw this sort of theme of this sort of uncollected divide, where between the foreign minister, the defense minister, the unification minister, and even the labor minister nominee, who was questioned on whether North Korea was a main enemy. So this sort of politically charged question sort of dominated the PPP, or the People Power Party, and the former ruling power party's conversations throughout each of these confirmation hearings.
Is the difference mainly symbolic? I mean, are we splitting hairs here?
Yeah, I would say that it's mainly symbolic. The idea of a whole main enemy, as you mentioned, only came up in 1995 after those comments were adopted into a defense white paper under the South Korean administration at the time. And it was dropped again in 2004 after the Sunshine Policy came into play, and was also dropped again after Moon, after Lee Myung-bak reinstated it after Yeonpyeong and the sinking of the Cheonan.
Yeah.
Thank you. And, it's not something that's under the Constitution as well. So it's nothing that's legally binding. So I would say it's definitely symbolic.
Why do you think the PPP and its forerunners put so much energy into making a big deal out of this?
Well, especially when you take the example of the labor minister's confirmation hearing. So he was a former head of the KCTU, an umbrella labor union, one of the largest labor unions in the country.
Is that the one with the headquarters around the corner from here that was raided by the NIS a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
So that's the one generally seen as being a bit pro-North Korean, that labor union.
So the labor union is currently indicted and has been prosecuted for alleged crimes against the state, where there was sort of espionage for North Korea going on within the KCTU
and
ranks.
Illegal contacts with North Korea.
Illegal contacts, yes. Yeah. And I think the PPP sort of used this as a pretext, and also the labor minister nominees sort of request, a legal request, mind you, with the unification ministry in 2011 to visit or pay respects to the former North Korean leader Kim Jong Il at his funeral. And
probably not really good optics.
No,
and this is only just less than 2 years after the sinking of the Cheonan and the shelling of the Yeonpyeong-do.
Indeed, and that was what the PPP lawmakers were taking issue with, as to sort of why this labor union leader was seeking to go to the funeral of essentially what was at the time designated as ROK's main enemy, under the defense white paper. And when you see that into play, the labor minister nominee, as I mentioned earlier, was also asked on, what ROK's main enemy is currently, as of now.
Yeah.
He couldn't offer a standardized comment. He was saying that he did not have enough expertise, and he was just going to or he requested a visit to Kim Jong Il's funeral just because he thought it would be good for Korean Peninsula affairs.
Is that how he looks back on it now?
Yeah.
I don't normally make political statements here, but that seems like a bit of a lapse of judgment on his part, from my perspective, is what I mean to say.
Yeah.
But I will say this, though, that Free Jae-myung, it's pretty bold naming this man as labor minister.
Yeah, so, he was the KCTU, he's already been confirmed as of this morning by the president, and he will start his term in office immediately afterwards. So he'll be the first ever KCTU head or KCTU member to become South Korea's first labor minister. And also...
Now, sorry to interrupt, correct me if I'm wrong. 30 years ago when I first came to Korea, the KCTU was an illegal union, wasn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's since become legalized, and now the former head of that is now becoming a labor. What a turnaround in Korean politics.
Yeah, it's changing times, but at the same time, it's quite intriguing to see the labor minister nominee or the current labor minister to be, just when he was accepting the nomination, he was a train rider for the Korail service.
Right, that made big headlines when he was sort of on the train and he got the message.
Yeah,
the call.
Exactly. But I think that his sort of ministerial hearing was clouded by his visit to his attempted visit to North Korea, his past visits to North Korea, and his relations with North Korea.
Well, and more recently, let's also bring in there that former President Yoon accused him, Kim Jong-un, of trying to politicize the Itaewon crowd crash tragedy on behalf of and in the interests of North Korea.
So it wasn't directly to Kim Jong-un,
I'm sorry.
but it was it was directly to he was citing these sort of KCTU allegations or prosecutions that were going on at the time, and directing them to the opposition party, the Democratic Party at the time, and saying that they were trying to instigate sort of political unrest, social unrest related to the Itaewon crowd crush incident, which was quite an explosive remark at the time and has not been concluded with any substantial evidence.
Well, that's right. And I note that President Lee Jae-myung's government has announced a new investigation, a new inquiry to look into what happened.
The Itaewon incident, yes.
Right. Let's move on from away from ministerial confirmations and on to a very interesting story, which, again, Chung Dong-yong is actually mentioned in, that he claims that North Korea now has 3 semiconductor plants, which, I mean, I can't build a semiconductor plant just in my apartment. I mean, these things are hard to build. You need these very clean, sterile rooms, no static, no dust. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so these plants, as you mentioned, they're not available to be built by a civilian. So these plants produce chips for domestically made mobile phones. They support the regime's sort of technological self-reliance doctrine. And what Chung Dong-yong was saying during his confirmation hearing was that North Korea is now running 3 semiconductor factories in Pyongyang, Pyeongseong, and Wonsan.
I remember Pyeongseong is a big science city for North Korea. They do a lot of they have special science schools there.
Yeah, so what the report was saying was that Pyongyang's main semiconductor plant, the one in Pyongyang, the one that was readily known, dates back to the 1980s, which was originally built with UN support and Indian government-linked assistance to Pyongyang. And other previously known plants include the Hamhung Semiconductor Materials Factory, another semiconductor plant in Haeju, and another plant in Tancheon Yangye region. And what Chung Dong-yong was saying, that these facilities are likely limited to producing sort of basic printed circuit boards and low-end chips. So I'm sorry, Chung Dong-yong wasn't saying that. But what the report was saying, for these facilities can also be used for AI ambitions, so AI-enabled drones, the cyber warfare tools that North Korea has been trying to build up for the past couple of years. And North Korea would need sort of advanced node semiconductors. It may not be yet capable of producing if it actually wants to achieve that goal. And also, these semiconductor factories can be also used for the cyber attacks on South Korean semiconductor firms, which suggests that DPRK is trying to steal designs to either sort of boost domestic production or like fund its regime to sort of boost its semiconductor plant.
There's not a lot of countries in the world with an economy that's in as much trouble as North Korea that runs not 1 but 3 semiconductor plants. That's pretty rare, but you know, it is a country where a large section of the population lives hand to mouth and struggles to get by, and you wonder, is this the best use of North Korea's resources? But then, away from that, Chung Dong-yong, talk about wishful thinking there, basically said, wow, wouldn't it be great if the 2 Koreas could do some AI cooperation?
Yeah. Well,
I didn't see that coming.
Wishful thinking on his part, but
you raised that in the confirmation hearing. I mean, I can imagine the PPP would have used that as political fodder.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's just only the PPP. I don't know how the general public will take it.
Well, I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, his claims were, or his sort of suggestion of this sort of AI cooperation between the 2 Koreas was based on the basic sort of claim that the DPRK may be developing its own version of ChatGPT, building on sort of AI research, including ChatGPT-based machine translation, showcased as early as 2021 in state media, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
So AI is seen as quite a strategic priority for Pyongyang. It's top brass, and it's tied to its cyber operations and autonomous weapons. So the whole suggestion of Chung Dong-yong looking for a proposal of inter-Korean cooperation on this AI and sort of digital communications front, he was sort of out advocating for using this benevolent AI, healthcare, disaster response, agriculture as a basis for non-military inter-Korean cooperation. And he suggested creating a task force under the Unification Ministry to explore this sort of AI collaboration. Whether that will come into fruition, it's still something.
I wonder how long it'll be before North Koreans have Chat Juche on their Red Star mobile phones, and then ask it. Today I got up out of bed a little bit late. Which one of the 10 great principles for establishing a monolithic leadership ideology did I break? That's that's a little joke there for me. Let's finish up with, I want to come back actually to the defense minister nomination, because we didn't talk about OpCon, operational control transfer. Well, that's a long-standing issue in Korea, about 20 years.
Yeah, so An Gyu-baek, as I mentioned, the first civilian defense minister nominee without prior military command experience, he announced a very ambitious goal to make sure that OpCon transfer happens under the Lee Jae-myung administration, under that 5-year term. Of course, the presidential office rebutted An's statement just hours later after his remarks, saying that it was only his personal opinion and that no concrete timeline had been decided for the OpCon transfer. And OpCon transfer, as we know, it consists of 3 conditions when we look at the 2014 agreement that was done under President Park Geun-hye, and it involved South Korea's ability to lead combined operations, readiness to counter North Korean threats, and this sort of stable security environment condition. And under that agreement, South Korea has passed the initial operation and capability stage in 2019. It's also conducted a full operation and capability testing in 2022. And the final full mission capability certification for the first condition remains pending, which means that South Korea still has quite a bit of leg room to make sure that it actually fits those conditions for the OpCon transfer from the United States, which was handed over from South Korea by President Syngman Rhee in 1950 to Douglas MacArthur during the Korean War, and has stayed ever since.
Okay, so that's that issue's back in play again. And we should also point out that An Gyu-baek did not hesitate to name North Korea as the main enemy.
Yeah.
Unlike his other fellows.
Yeah, so his other fellows were quite hesitant in actually naming North Korea as the main enemy. But of course, you saw An Gyu-baek trying to define himself as the leader of South Korea's main armed forces cohort, saying that the armies and the armed forces view of North Korea should be obsolete, and it's sort of a reputation building, an image building, saying that North Korea is the main enemy.
All right, well, that is where we will leave it today. Thank you very much, Joon Ha, for talking about these stories with us.
Thank you.
Looking to stay informed about South Korea's fast evolving political, business and cultural landscape? Join us on Korea Pro, the go-to resource for in-depth analysis expertly curated by top-tier professionals. And now you can pick the membership level that best suits your needs, thanks to our new subscription packages. Starting at just $199 annually, you can access daily analysis and our weekly podcast. Or try our premium membership package, which offers additional perks such as executive briefings, monthly reports and forecasts, networking receptions and event opportunities, as well as much, much more. To find the best fit for you, just head to signup.koreapro.org and become a member today.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our podcast episode for today. Our thanks go to Brian Betts and Alana Hill for facilitating this episode, and to our post-recording producer genius Gabby Magnuson, who cuts out all the extraneous noises, awkward silences, bodily functions, and fixes the audio levels. Thank you, and listen again next time.